this video, I will show you how 3DPBOSS works by walking you through the basic workflow across the entire system. I will cover all the important aspects and hopefully answer many of the questions you may have. My name is Stepan Medvedev. I created this system for my own use and it practically saved me. It allowed me to remotely manage a mid-size 3D printing service and eventually sell it, also remotely. Let's dive in.
Here we are on the first screen, where we are welcomed and prompted to do a backup. And we have an instruction on how to do that. They will take like 10 seconds and will allow us to have a fresh version of the system just in case. Now, before we move further and dive into one of those paths, I would like to state an important thing. This system, in the core of it, lies a number of interconnected databases. Here they are. And everything we will see, including almost everything in those paths, are views to those databases, filtered and sorted in different ways. So, number of databases and a lot of views on them. With that in mind, let's start with the first path, one-man army. And I would like to start with that view because here is, by the way, a table of contents. For easier navigation, we can navigate it like this. So I like this layout because there is everything one need to operate a 3D printing business in one page. And all existing views can be modified. Let me quickly show you. For example, we select the view, copy it, and we can paste it in whatever place we like. And then we can hide properties. We can unhide any properties we need. We can delete tabs. It will not affect databases, but if we delete property, that will affect databases. So only do that if you fully understand what you're doing. Even if we delete the whole view like that, no harm will be done to the structure. Moving along. So let's create a first lead. We simply click on the lead, and when we do that, we can see that template populated the page content. Throughout the system, in many places, you will be able to find links to all relevant instructions. For example, here in the left upper corner of each section, each path, and each section, that is that, we'll be able to find all relevant instructions, quick start guide, the overview of the section, and the info hub. Now let's close the page, select the services, let's select all services, select a source. In your quick start guide, you will find that sources and industries shall be populated and modified before we move along. And I will show you just how easy it is to insert a new source, for example. We type down new and press create new. And we have it. Then we can modify it like this. And just quickly as that, we can delete it as well. So we select a source, select an industry. CRM is based on the principle that you should have a new next contact date for every lead and for every deal. In this case, we'll have a formula which, if a lead is created, a next contact date will be automatically created in 2 days. We can easily change it, for example, to 4 days, like that. But let's change it back to 2. Or we can just simply override it with manual next contact date. And here will be a next contact subject. Here we will see a reason for rejection or for no status. Some sites allow to input data directly from the site into Notion. There is also like third-party automation tools like Zapier that will allow to import data from other sources directly into your CRM in this case. So you don't have to create a lead manually. All of those data in this case can be pulled from the source where lead came from. Now let's calculate the price and present an offer to the prospect. For that, we will need to use a 3D printing price calculator. I will not explain in detail how it works and how to set it up. Let's just say I'm using a Prusa slicer here, and that a Prusa slicer returned to me time, 15 hours, and weight, 166 grams. I populate those numbers into the calculator. So the more parts we have, the lower the price per gram and hour will be. Here as well, we can input price for modeling, For assembly and post-processing, you see as I'm adding more, the range has changed. Let's add a couple more. Let's increase the prices for modeling, assembly and all that. Packing and handling here as well. The next thing is we want to do is we want to copy this line, go to calculations and paste special values only. And this will allow us to, over time, create a database of relevant calculations, which we can later use to calculate big complicated orders and just to have relevant statistics. Now the question may arise, why don't we use something simple like auto-calculated based on the volume? Because when you make a lot of different parts with printers which have support and have an infill parameter and shell parameter and many other parameters that can affect weight and time of printing, the calculators based on the volume will not be able to provide you with correct calculation. Now here we have an information about a client. We can populate it or not. The important thing here is we have a number of the row. Now we take this number and all the data we have here and we populate the relevant numbers. Now we have this number of row in the calculator and we put it in here. Now when we do that, we'll be able to easily find the calculation for later. For example, if we have to recalculate or change something, and we will not have to start from scratch, especially that is huge time saver if we work with big complicated orders. Or we'll just have to see, for example, how much we calculated for assembly and how much for post-processing, because here it is combined. And everyone will be able to see that calculation, see the time and weight, the range, and all that. One more thing I would like to mention is we can have a discount here, for example, like that. Now the calculation is done. The total sum is here, and we send it to the client. And after we did, we change the status to in work. And we set a next contact subject to something like that. And we set a next contact date. Now, to illustrate the thing what I was talking about in the beginning, here we'll find a CRM section. And if we go to that, we will see lead that we created and calculated. Now I'd like to show you a few more things. There's a thing or property called important. If we check that, to mark an important leads or deals, we'll be able to find this lead or deal in the important tab. Then we will have a next contact tab. We'll see in the order from the first to the last all leads or deals which we have to contact. And if we change, for example, a date to today, we'll be able to see it in the property next contact today. We'll also be able to see the next contact overdue property return us a notification that it is overdue. Now let's move to the CRM section when we see our lead, and same tabs. And we also have a tab overdue, which contains all the leads and deals with an overdue next contact date. Why this system, like with next contact and next contact subject, exists is to effectively follow up with clients. And only this simple procedure can boost revenue up to 30%. So we followed up, and let's say the client agreed to our proposition and he's ready to move forward. He would like to sign an NDA. Now change the status to confirmed, or we can do it like this. Now we'll have to create a contract. You can, by the way, link it right here. Depending on your workflow, you can skip the confirm and just move it to paid. First, when we moved it to paid, it disappeared from leads and it can be found in deals because it's a deal now. When we did that, an order was automatically created in the orders database, and here we can see the order itself linked automatically. Now let's create a client. Now we have the following structure, that we have a client, and this client will have contacts. We'll just add a contact. We'll open a contact in a new page. And we select both of those. But if you have multiple contacts, you can pick one as main and one is for delivery. And here you can say, for example, that I will have to discuss like accounting questions with their contact. And this contact is an engineer, and so on and so forth. That usually happens when you work with businesses. But in this case, we'll just have one. We edit it. And as we can see, an email and phone got populated with information from the contact. When we select a new main contact, it will be populated with his or her information. This contact is contact for delivery. His name and phone was already populated in the delivery info property. We will see also that the deal, which related to this client, is also visible here. And here, we sign a contract. Let's pick an order due. Well, let's say it's 15th. Now we'll move to fill in the order info for production. Now, important thing before we move into that is that who will populate the production side of the order and how will depend on your processes. For example, in our case, sales managers provided basic information and all the production specific information was filled through production side. So in here we have modeling specification, printing specification, post-processing specification. If separate specifications are not required, we can just fill it all in one specification like that. And if we open the order, we see all the information pulled from the CRM part, which is an order date and when it shall be done and how many days are left. Here we can pick different dates for modeling and printing as like milestones, which is very important if we're dealing with big complicated orders. One more thing is that the system is rather complex, so it includes many things. And if you don't want to use and see no point in using some specific function, you can just skip it. For example, we have here tags, which will specify what kind of post-processing packing we'll need. For example, you can just skip it and not use it. There's many other things. Just use whatever you feel necessary, and if later you will need additional functions, they are there for you. If you need some other functions that are not there, they can be easily added. Now we also can see here specification properties pulled up, and NDA. If you see, for example, in this particular view, when you open the page, you see something that you don't want to see, there is a property visibility options, and you can hide it in an empty, always hide or always show. And here we will see what our order template consists of. Again, it's being automatically populated, like with every new order we create. All the relevant information shall be placed here. There's a lot of information on how it can be structured in the instructions. Here we'll see a 3D printing specification with what parameters printing shall be done. It can be simple like that if it applies to the whole order. If it's not, and if it's more complicated, and for different parts of order there are different things, we can take this, delete, and make it the part of order info. I'll talk about that later, but just to say that if we have any relevant like instructions, know-how, and for example, already done something similar and documented it, which is a big part of the system as well, to store and reuse knowledge. And we can see that it is applicable in this case. We can just pull it from the knowledge database and it will be shown here. The system is fully functional on a Notion free plan, so you don't have to pay subscription fees, which is pretty cool. But there is a limitation of 5 megabytes per file that you can store in the system. If you want more than 5 megabytes, you will have to upgrade, and in this case there are no official limits. And you can store initial files and sliced files. So we take a file and we simply drag and drop it into the body of the order, and we can store as many as we like. We can create a different page for it, etc, etc. There's also a possibility, we haven't created this property, but I will show you just how easy it is to do if you need it. For example, there is a property called files and media. Let's create a new job just to demonstrate. Each individual job can have its own G-code. We can create, for example, a template for a specific type of job. It's probably more relevant if you produce some products and you just choose a file and upload it, and it is there. Here it is. And we can add more files if we need to. Now about naming. We suggest, and it simplified our life a lot and streamlined our workflows, to assign each client an ID. For example, in this case, it could be something like that. When you see this ID, you will be quickly able to associate the ID with a specific client. We explain it in detail in one of our instructions. Now let's move along. we assign an ID. Let's visit and rename our deal. We have an ID and the date when the deal was finalized. And we name our order exactly like that, so they match, which eliminates possibility for errors and again simplifies searches and simplifies a lot of things really. We're back inside the order in our CRM section. And the second part of naming a thing will be related to jobs, which we are now moving to. You can see 4 toggles with different kinds of jobs or sets of jobs. For example, here we have, with these beautiful names, preset order structures. Up top here, we have an explanation. We have it in all toggles throughout the system, by the way. And we can see here that we will need this structure, which includes everything. And if we press on it, we'll see a set of jobs created. I would not talk about buttons here because again we have instructions. I would just say that those are huge time savers. Now let's add a material first and then printers. And we will start with the loading icons for both. We go to Tech, Materials, and we download the icons pack. And here, let me just click download.
Now we need to go to Materials section, add a new material, change the name, add an icon, duplicate it like this, Ctrl D, and then change the name and an icon on the second one.
Now we will need to add stock. The first option and best for the start would be to add this as a manual property for initial intake. Let's see, we have 4 and 2. And the second option would be to add them through procurements. So when you buy material, it automatically gets added to the left column. Now we're moving along to the cost per gram or millimeter property, or basically a cost per unit. We have to assign how much 1 gram or millimeter or unit of material cost for automatic margin calculations, or cost calculations if we're using standard system and we have no CRM and revenue. And input just some number like this. But when we add new stock for procurement, this property will be populated and corrected each time we make a new procurement. It will account for how much material is it in the pack and for sheer number of packs. We'll also have to fill out where we store a material, which is rather relevant for everyone who either have like at least a few racks or places where it can be stored, or if you have just one more person working with you. So we have a specific naming instructions, and here we will just say that we suggest to name each rack and each shelf on the rack. Now let's move on to printers, where we will need to add printers, just as like we added materials. We open the on-off tab, although we can do it in any tab really, and we click plus new. And when we do that, we see the page is populated with template content. Now we need to name our printer and add an icon. Okay, we did that. Now let's add one more by copy pasting. Now let's change the number on this one. Now we need to set a maintenance threshold, how many hours we need to run before the maintenance have to be done. And we need to define a cost per hour, how much it costs to run one printer for an hour. We actually provide an instruction how to calculate it properly. The cost of the hour property is used in margin calculations as well as cost of unit for material. Okay, now we can add jobs.
But before we do that, let's add a team member who will help us with those jobs. Let's say we need a 3D modeler. We are here in the employee section. We'll go here, click plus new, and when we do that, a new page is created and automatically gets populated with templates content. I would like to add a cover image. Here I can fill out the needed information, like the contact in Notion, role, let's say daily rate. There's a payment info. There's a salary schedule, self-explanatory. There's a date when employee started working. It automatically gets populated with the date when this page was created, but it can be changed manually. And here's the date when employee finished working. Now we can see the page's content. First of all is onboarding and onboarding paths. Now those are filled with dummy data.
If you have a few typical roles, you can create few templates and populate each with needed list. Here are linked views of the databases, which are not configured. And if we open the toggle, we will be able to see how we should configure those. And I will demonstrate on the example of jobs. And here we have 4 rules: assignee, slice, started, and removed. And let's say we want for each to contain our employee's profile in Notion. From now on, we will only see jobs related to this employee. The next step would be to grant this employee access to different databases, dashboard sections, mobile views. I will probably need orders, jobs, wiki, printer, let's say repairs, why not, spare parts, and procurement. If we grant access to sections, which are those pages, those will be in a second. How to grant access specifically, we cover step by step, very clear in our instructions, in our boarding paths, so I will not cover it here. Also can grant access to mobile views, which we can see here. This view helps us to remember and to control which employee has access to what specifically. Okay, now let's create a dashboard. Let's click dashboard. By default, we already have those like exemplary dashboard pre-populated. We also have templates. Let's create a new one. Here's the dashboard. Usually here goes the name of the employee. Here are a couple of linked views. Despite that person being a 3D modeler, there are still all jobs. If you don't need such view, just delete it. But in our practice, many people can combine roles. It is much easier to delete the view than to add a new one. What each view does and how it shall be configured can be found in the toggle. After we configured everything, we just share this page with the employee, and then we copy the URL of this page and we pass the dashboard here. All right, now we can go back to jobs. We go back to the order. We open it. But first, we will address remodeling jobs because they have to be done first. So we pick an assignee. We have a start plan property, which is self-explanatory. Time is not necessarily have to be added. If you don't need it, just use just the date. And we can see here do 3D modeling, which pulling the information from here, and we pick when we plan that this job shall be ready with a little margin. Just in a moment, I will see how the assignee will see it from his or her view. And we see all the information. We can also see an order and can open it up and read the initial task and all that. So now let's assume we begin our work on 3D modeling and we change the status to in work. As we can see, it disappeared from here because there is only new job here, and we can see on jobs. And we also can see that start fact property has automatically been populated with a date and time when we change the status to in work. Same thing goes for done, dedicated view, and we will be able to see just now how in fact property has been populated with time and date as well when we change the status to done. Now let's use this view. We can skip in work if we want. Again, it depends on our processes. We can provide ready-made slicing files with a link or just upload them to the project. I suggest the latter. And now there's one last thing we would have to do here. We have a 3D printing jobs. We already added them, but that is not the right order of things. They all naturally shall be added after the slicing is done. And we now know how many of them. Let's say it's 4. We know time and weight, and we fill those out. Again, it may be done by someone else, depending on your process, but we'll do that now. One more thing we will have to do is fill out ourselves as sliced. All of those properties like sliced, started, and removed, they may not be filled if there's just one person who's slicing files, who launching files, or who removing them. But if there is at least 2, I highly recommend using them. We've done our part. And we can go back to production now. We'll see that there are jobs. We now add material according to the order info, for example. Well, let's say we'd like to add PLA black and 1 PLA white. And we will be picking ourselves as started. The next step would be production planning. So there are a few ways of production planning. First is by printer type, and the second by printer. You can use either of them, or you can use both of them combined. We prefer to use printer type. So we have 4 jobs, but only we'll have 2 printers. We pick them both. There is a tab called untaken printers. For example, let's free one up. You will see that's not in the plan anymore, and it is free and untaken. But if we take it back, it becomes taken and disappears from this tab. Let's actually print those. We picked printer, we picked material, and we opened new packs, new spools of material for those jobs, and we account for that. It's usually one, but not always. And now we actually start printing those, and we select and work. Now there's a property called when should be ready, and it shows us date and time when those shall be ready based on the time those has been printed. Yeah, let's say that we removed it. Now let's change status to done. We can see they both done. We did that. You saw that the printer appeared as free, so it became free. Now we can move to post-processing service jobs. Very similar to modeling. You just pick an assignee. And if we would add a dashboard, we would find those jobs in our dashboard. We fill out the factual plan. Let's see, it's this. And when we change the status to in work, the start fact will be populated, and then we change the status to done, and fact will be populated. Service jobs. Those are exactly the same or very alike as 3D modeling, post-processing jobs, but those are different kind of jobs. They can be done by office managers. And in this case, we just mark them as done. Our order is 100% complete. We can change it to ready. Usually the status signifies that the order has been printed, modeled, and post-processed and ready for the service jobs. And when the service jobs are done, we change it to done. There's of course where is it property, the same as with materials and spare parts. We can pick an assignee for order, process dependent, go back to CRM, and see our order status is done. So every time we change the status in the order, the sales manager can see the updates without need to go into orders and check it here. And the last stage of the order would be to mark it as closed. We have a few versions of the system, Standard and Max. Max have the CRM, which we just visited. Standard does not have a CRM. And in the CRM section, we also have a closed status. So you can use either. It will not only depend on whatever you have a CRM or not, but also on your processes. And we closing it up. That means that the order has been handed out either to the client or to the delivery service. Despite that the order has been closed, the CRM model suggests that we still need a next contact date. In this specific case, we'll need it to collect the feedback. And let's assume that this date is now, and we contacted the client, and he provided us with feedback, provided us with satisfaction level, let's say it's 8, and he provided us with one more very, very important thing, what can be improved. And even after that, on our previous contact, we'll have to ask the client, when should we expect the next order? And she say, well, I don't know, probably within a month. What if I contact you September 17th? Will it be okay? He said, yes. And we say next order. If and when client actually contacts us with a new lead, it will be stored as a new lead. One more thing, although Notion is fully functional mobile, this type of pages are not particularly very easy to use or optimized for mobile. There are special pages for mobile usage, which can come really handy. For example, if you have production facility and there is no personal computer at the site or at hand, when you start a job, it goes like this. It's very minimal with all related and important properties on the left side, so they can easily be accessible. And the second would be for job finished. We can quickly change the status and pick ourselves as removed, because that's usually those two and that's it. Now let's look into tasks and projects. There are two sets of tasks and projects database. Tasks and projects for the owner and tasks and projects for the team. The owner can have his or her own private tasks and projects visible to only him or her. Let's create a project. One more important thing before we go further, that by design, everything related to production done through orders and jobs, and tasks and projects are created for non-production use. For example, any materials and notes can be placed here, the results can be described here, We of course have the dedicated property. If the result is big and complicated, it can be both here and here. You can pull documents from the wiki database, instructions, manuals, SOPs. Let's add a few tasks here. We can pick a due date, we can specify a result, we can pick an assignee. We also included an archive button for the case when the task is no longer relevant, but you don't want to delete it for some reason. And here we have different views, not done tasks, done tasks, tasks with due for today. Let's, for example, pick the current date, and procurements related to our project. Let's pick a due. For the project, we have progress. For example, if we check those out, we'll see the progress. We can see time that's left until the due date. We can also pick an assignee. We can leave a comment, of course, result as I mentioned. Here we have a daily planner. There are some buttons here related to printers. You can use task functionality to schedule and perform maintenance and repair. There are other suggestions and there are schedules. Daily schedule, for example, if you have day-to-day tasks which repetitive for every day, there are a few ways to do that. One of the ways is to set up a button for yourself or for others. There is the financial report schedule and there is a backup schedule. Both of those covered in the onboarding paths and instructions. Now let's quickly review what we have here. We can see all tasks for today on the calendar. We can also see all tasks, overdue tasks. Yeah, we can see tasks grouped by project. We can see it grouped by assignee. And of course, we can see done tasks. Both owners and teams, projects and tasks have the same functionality. Now let's use this functionality and use a button to schedule an inventory. In this case, we have 3 tasks when the button is clicked. We can delete what's not needed. Of course, we can reconfigure the button. In this case, inventory and fixing results are 2 separate tasks, and you can easily reconfigure it yet. So now we have a task. Let's pick a due date and pick our employee as an assignee. And now we are in the employee's dashboard, and we of course will see that we need to perform an inventory. Now in order to do that, our employee here will need to have access to the wiki. It will look something like this. Here we are in Wiki and Docs. Here we will need Material Inventory tab. It will create a new document. As you can see, it's already populated with needed type. We open it, apply Material Inventory. Now, how inventory shall be done, I cover in relevant instructions here. I will just show how the process goes. We can pretty clearly see how many of each left, and there is no direct need for an inventory at this point, but I'm demonstrating the process, how it works. An assignee can add any notes here. He or she will be populated as owner and as created by, it was created by me, that's why I'm here and here. An inventory is ready, and what we suggest to do is to export it as a PDF. Looks something like this. And the reason to do that we will have a document, and the document is not so easily changed. Now, we may copy the URL of the doc, go to Tests and Projects, open it, and paste it in the result. We can also upload our PDF doc here, and now we can check it off.
By the way, some things I discuss are not directly related to the software, but rather to the business side of 3D printing. Some of these are covered in a document, which summarizes my 10 years of experience and offers both strategical and practical advice. This document is included with every paid version of the system. However, there is much more, and every case is unique. If you have questions or concerns about a 3D printing business, book a consultation. I will leave a link in the description below.
As an owner, we see that the task has been done, and we review the inventory, and we see that there's not a lot of materials left. You may have a standard operating procedure in place. You may notify the responsible individual by mail, by Slack. For example, if there is like 3 in this case left, or you can even send an email to your supplier. That can be done through Zapier. We can do it for you. If you want, email us In this situation, we are done everything by ourselves as an owner, manually. Oh, just saying that, I'm already tired. But despite that, I will have to do that. And I go to tasks and projects, and I will create a task. Let's pick a due date for tomorrow, and assignee will be myself. We was ready to purchase our materials when we discovered that our printer get out of order, and that we'll have to deal with it right now. Let's assume we discovered that this printer is no longer working. For example, nozzle has been jammed. We check it off. That means it's no longer on. To demonstrate how maintenance procedures should come, let's lower the maintenance threshold to less than number of hours already printed. And you will see this red circle. Again, notifications through automations can be sent to responsible individual. When we pick a printer for the job, we can also add need maintenance. Okay, back to the printers. In our basic protocol, we suggest then the printer gets broken. We added this to the repair and maintenance log. For example, we have a nozzle clock. It will be repair. So we pick a printer. In this case, we can see that this one is off. And let's log this one for maintenance as well. We have a mechanism in the system called turn, which works like that. You just assign a greater number and it goes up the quire. So it shall be done first. First is maintenance, so let's perform maintenance. We may need spare parts for maintenance. I'm not sure we will in this case, but if we do, we pick them. For the maintenance, we have this simple workflow in place. Again, you may use discharge boxes. Let's say we will. You may not, then just hide them. We see here a printer total. So this is 15 hours. And we'll have to log this number here. When we do that, our need maintenance count is reset. That's how maintenance function works. Again, if we're just one person who performs maintenance and repair, we may not need to fill this out, but we will. And we fill out the done date, and you can see it's been done, and it can be now found in the archive. We now need to perform a repair, and for that we will need a spare part. And let's add a new one. By the way, we have an inventory tab here, and we already can see our done inventory right here. Moving down to spare parts, and we click a new one. And the mechanics here are the same as with materials. Same thing with stock. Let's say we have 2 nozzles. And the where is it property, as you remember from material, very, very, very handy for spare parts because they are small and like material can easily be lost. And even if not lost, then a lot of time can be spent just searching for them. We are going back to repair and we select our spare part. Here I should mention again that you may not need to use all of those, but I will add myself. Now I add a date and it disappears for repair and can be filed for inspection. So let's see, we do that as well. I pick a date for inspection, and now it disappears from here and can be found in the archive. One more thing, check it back online. And we will see that we already have one part installed, and we see here cost of parts. So let's go to our spare parts, pick any number. We will see that we have the cost of parts combined. It's not only informative, but it also reminds people who may not directly be associated with spendings or business side that those things cost money. As we are on the subject, there are 2 more checkboxes I would like to mention here. If you have like tens of printers of the same model, and some of them may not print great, and some of them may print better than average, and you may check those off to know for yourself that this printer is better than average, this printer is worse than average, and that may affect for which jobs these printers are picked. Well, we repaired this printer, but we found the problem particularly interesting and I would like to document it. Therefore, we created a new document and we may add a type here. Let's make it a manual. For example, we discovered one interesting thing about nozzle blocks. Now it's related to that printer. It is also logged in our wiki database, and it also can be found in manuals here. If we understand that it is related to all printers of that type, we may pick them here like this. Same goes for maintenance. For example, let's get back and create a maintenance manual. Let's pick printers. Yeah, and every time now anyone will prefer maintenance, he or she will see this manual and will know how to maintain this type of printer. Okay, as you remember, we created a task for material procurement. I've changed this task to also include spare parts because I'm a bit lazy. I don't want to create one more task. I've already told how it can be done. It can be done without tasks at all. All right, off we go to finances. And here are procurements and costs. First, I will explain how procurements work. It's a procedure or a mechanism which is based on statuses. As with many other parts, if you feel that you not need to use those statuses, you may skip them, but just please don't delete them if you do not know what you're doing specifically, because it may jeopardize the mechanics of the system. So those statuses are list. For example, when a person understands that he or she needs something, he or she lists it, and then the responsible individual see that item, approves it, and changes status to pay. Then a responsible individual pays for it and changes status to paid, and then when the goods or services arrive, the responsible individual changes status to received. This particular funnel is designed to accommodate multi-people structure. If you don't need it, you may ignore it. In our case, we'll just go to paid. We'll create a new one. Now there is a property initiator who initiated procurement that goes back to the funnel and to all the structure. For the sake of the instruction, I'll pick myself. If we just buy the material from just some random shop, we may not need a contractor at all. It will just pick a type. Now let's pick a material which we are buying, which is PLA white. And there is one more property related to printing material specifically, and that is the volume of the material, how many grams on the spool we have. And let's pick a quantity, for example, we need 10. And we need a price per unit. Okay, now let's pick a contractor, or rather create a new one. We'll just call it new contractor. As we can see here in contractors, we have new contractor and we pick printing materials. Let's pick another spare parts. Let's say it's a shop. Now what we'll have to do is to pick arrival date. Now let's add one more. Let's pick the same contractor. We of course may have a link, docs, for example, link to the shop if we are using to pay or list. We may link to the receipt, we may use an invoice. Yeah, and here we picking our spare part. And as you can see, when we do that, the type is also changes. And it's rather important for financial calculation. So the hierarchy or the structure goes like this. First we have a contractor, then if we pick material or spare part, and then we have the manual, which overrides everything. Now we have our procurements on the way, and I would like to demonstrate one important mechanism. If there is an ongoing procurement in paid but not received status, and it is related to the material or to the spare part, we'll be able to see when and how many pieces will arrive in the arrival property. Now let's go to finances and receive our procurements. And now let's see what happened after we did. Well, material stock got updated. We no longer breaching that threshold. Same goes for nozzles. And from the financial standpoint, now those will be accounted in the financial report. We can also see paid amount for the contractor. I've touched on procurements. Now let's move to the costs. Costs is the second part of the financial model of our system, and only a limited group of people can have access to it by design. For example, an owner, a CFO, or just a person who pays for stuff. Costs accommodate such payments as rent, salary, utilities, and other bills, which may be a sensitive information. Let me demonstrate how it works. So we go to not paid, we create a new one, we create a due if needed. Let's assume we would like to pay for the rent. I already created a contractor and picked a type rent and filled out payment information and payment schedule. And now I picked this contractor from here and I can see those payment info and payment schedule got auto-populated.
Now only one thing left to do is to pick a date when I paid for this, and I do that. Now let's take a look at the block we have here, which contains a couple of schedules containing fixed tables, not databases, with costs like salary and fixed cost for the month that we will have to pay. Those here are for informational purposes. We can also configure buttons to contain a salary schedule for a month or fixed cost schedule for a month, and populate our not paid costs with all needed costs for a month with the click of a button. But there's also an option to create repeatable costs. We can, for example, set them on bi-monthly basis. We can pick a start date, we can even pick a time, and for example we can call this one rent, and each month in the picked date, in the picked time, the cost will be created automatically, and we can create the whole list of those. So there are 3 options: by hand, by button, or repeatable templates. Now let's pay a salary. Let's pick an employee which we created. And when we do that, we can see that the type of cost has automatically got populated with stuff, which placed it in the right place in the financial report. We also can see that the payment info and the payment schedule gets auto-populated out of the employee's info right here. I would like to mention though, there are a few types specifically employee related. They all colored in blue and they have E in the beginning. There are 2 specific types which I would like to demonstrate: no show and extra work. Let's pick an extra work, and when we do that, we'll see that results get automatically populated with a number, and this number comes from a daily rate of the employee we picked. And if I to pick a no show, the result would be reversed with a negative number. But I've picked a salary. Let's pick an amount. Let's say it's something like this, I don't know. And the only one thing left is to pick a date. And we pick one. And it disappears from here, and both payments can be found right here. The total sum by month is accommodated here. And if we go to the employee page, we will be able to see a costs view and our total employee related costs. And if we open the employee page, we'll also be able to see a total costs paid for this particular employee. Now let's take a look at the financial reports. If we scroll down, we will be able to see procurements and costs by group and relation. Here we'll be able to see employee related costs grouped by month. Here we'll be able to see contractor related costs grouped by month, paid and not paid. Here we'll be able to see procurements grouped by type and procurements grouped by relation, paid and not paid accordingly. Those are now the same because name of the type and name of the relation for printing materials and spare parts are the same. But if we open hidden groups here and look at other names, we'll see deal, order, repair and maintenance in the relations, and we see delivery, 3D modeling, repair and other things in types. So those are different. And if we ever get confused with this, we can open the toggle and see the explanation here. Now if we scroll up, we'll be able to see our deal which has been closed and all the related financial info. Revenue split by service, sum of the revenue, different kind of margins, margin without printing time and with printing time, marginal percents with time and without. There's no difference because the count is too small, but we will be able to see the difference here in printing margin based on this 3D printed revenue. We will be able to see 3D modeling margin, post-processing margin, and even the delivery margin, which is 30 because we hadn't created any delivery procurement. But let's do it right now, and let's do it right from here. We click on procurement and we type down delivery and we click plus new and we open the delivery. We can pick an order date, we can pick arrival date, we can pick a contractor, or we can pick a manual type, which we'll do right now. Now to specify the price per unit, we don't have to fill the quantity out, because if it's empty, it is counted as 1. And now we have a sum, we have a relation. Relation's been automatically created when we created this delivery procurement right from our deal. And the last thing we'll need is to pick a status. And we do that, we'll be able to see that our deals procurements costs grew to 25 and our delivery margin shrunk to 5. Here we'll be able to see the sum by month because they are grouped by month. You'll be able to see sum of margins, median percent, and all that. We'll also be able to pick our own period. It's explained how to do that right here. It's actually rather simple. We go here and we select a range. This view here is designed to demonstrate how each sales manager has done in a certain time period. We are also able to see deals grouped by source, industry, and we'll be able to see clients here with total paying amount, total margin, latest order, number of orders. You also can use, if you need, an accumulative discount for the client based off the total paid amount. It is empty here because the threshold has been breached, and if we widen the range to accommodate our total paid sum, we'll see that discount appears. This, of course, shall be set it up. I find it a rather pleasant add-on to increase clients' loyalty. Now let's take a look at the material usage. Here we are in the materials section, and here we have a printing material usage view, where we can see by month, by year, and by custom date, which works exactly as I showed you a few moments before. Just pick a range, and if you're ever confused, you look at the toggle here, which will show us by material a total usage if we don't pick a date, or a usage within specific date. And use cases for that would be just to adjust your supply and tactics, for example, how much each material you should buy, or to strike a deal with a supplier, presenting him with or her with numbers saying, hey, we've bought this much material for this X time period, maybe give us a discount. The same thing goes for spare parts, monthly usage, yearly usage, custom date, group by part, and there is also by printer, which is rather handy to see a problematic printers at a glance. There is also a most used, and last modified. So there are many options to look at this information. Same goes for the material. Now let's go back to finances and take a look at our financial and marketing reports. These are a clean report, which every system has, and this report with dummy data, link to the instruction on how to set it up. We will take a look at the dummy data one, which show us a lot of different things, which show us by year and by month. For example, it's March here, net turnover, total variable costs, by type, total fixed costs, also by type, and of course, overall sums. There are also percentage of net turnover from specific services, variable cost, and fixed costs. There's also an information on spendings throughout the categories, and the percentage of spendings in net turnover, also by category. And there's also two other tables here by industry and by source, which will show us numbers turnover by industry, percent of industry net turnover, income amount of printing services, modeling services, and post-processing services, median satisfaction level, and conversion. And almost the same is by source, and this all data is accumulated automatically after those three tables got populated with the data from our databases. Now let's go back to our initial page and take a look at our dashboards. You'll be able to see activity in a CRM, orders, tasks, jobs, by day, here it is. And the last tab will be by printer. And no printer means there are no 3D printing jobs, like assembly, 3D modeling. We can close it down. Or even if we're not interested in those kind of jobs, you can go to groups and hide no printer. Here we'll be able to see jobs by doer. Let's look at the done one. Here I am, done 03. 3D modeling jobs, our employee did those. Post-processing jobs, me again. Now here is the tasks and projects owners. And this database is empty because we haven't created any projects and tasks here. But in employees database, we created a few and we can find them right here. Here you'll be able to see jobs, revenue and margin. This will show us exactly the same thing which we saw in the financial section. Procurements and costs, almost the same thing. We almost went an entire circle And now we are reaching the end of the video. I would like to showcase one more time that everything you see here in this dashboard or in any other view can be changed very easily. For example, you understand that you would like these two things to be seen in one-man army, and you just select and copy those. And you just paste it in any place. And here they are. Additionally, we have a bonus section called DIY View, where we gathered all the views throughout the system and grouped them in sections. You can use it to construct your own view. You just simply open the needed section, select a view that you need, drag it down, drop it in the place you need, and then extract the database component. And here you have it. And just pick ones you need, drag them down, and you have yourself a view. We've covered many things, but not everything. And all the details and how to use things we gathered in our Info Hub, where we provide a comprehensive set of instructions grouped by needed type. It can be viewed as a page like this, or it can be viewed as a database. The important part is that you'll be able to find everything that's needed throughout the search and get answers to whatever question you may have. And of course, you can contact us with any request for customization, automatization, and any question you may have about the system.
We've covered a lot, but not everything, and you may have questions about what you saw. If you want answers and would like to know and see more specific details, book a demo call, link in the description.